Good evening, and thank you for joining me again in Miss Aguilar's History Corner, finding the central idea, or main idea, as it usually is referred to. You will need the following materials. You will need your history notebook, a pencil, and a Creating America McDougall-Littell textbook. Now that you are ready to begin, we will need to turn to page 29 in your history book, page 29. And in your history notebook, please find a page that you might be using to work the example. Let's begin. We'll be working with early Mesoamerican civilizations, located on the right-hand side on page 29. You will also need to ensure that the page that you decide to practice on has no writing on it, as we will begin to write on the left-hand side. Your notebook should be flat. Please ensure that you're looking at the left-hand side. We always begin by ensuring that our notes are in Cornell format. You usually can make a crease very simply by placing your 4 fingers and then creasing the paper. On the left-hand margin will be your questions. On the right-hand side is where you write your notes and your summaries. So again, on the left-hand side will be for questions, and the right side will be able to respond to it. We first begin by writing down the topic. Usually the topic is the chapter and section that you are working on. In this case, we have to go back 1 page. This would be Chapter 1, Section 1, Crossing to the Americas. Now you take the time to go ahead and write that in on the top line. Please remember that the topic must go on this line. Chapter 1, Section 1, Crossing to the Americas, will identify what chapter, what section, and the title of your page that you worked off of. The next step is writing your objective. You write your objective on the left-hand side. Please do not abbreviate. You must entirely write objective. The objective is to ensure that the student at the end of the lesson is able to understand what their purpose is for reading. In this case, you usually find the objective by going to the main idea. You would write, I will be able to understand that ancient peoples came from Asia to the Americas and over time developed complex civilizations. Again, you would write, I will be able to understand that ancient peoples came from Asia to the Americas and over time developed complex civilizations. I will be able to understand that, and go ahead and finish up the rest. Ancient peoples came from Asia to the Americas and over time developed complex civilizations. The rest of that remaining sentence would go on these 2 lines. Once you finish your objective, you would skip a line and write the essential question, or typically referred to as by students as EQ. For today's purpose, please write out essential question. And please remember your essential question would go on the left margin of where you creased it. So your question would be on this side. Let's refer back, now that you have finished your objective, to page 29, Early Mesoamerican Civilizations. The heading in red would be where you would take your question from. You would use the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, or how. Now let's go ahead and I'll give you 30 seconds to go ahead and think of a question using the 5 W's or H using this title in red. Give it a try. I hope that you have created a question. Now, if you are not there yet, I will be your guide today. You would write, who were the early Mesoamerican civilizations? Who were the early Mesoamericans? You would write that on the left-hand margin. Who were the early Mesoamericans? Civilizations in crossing to the Americas. We would always put a blank in, and then we would read the title, in crossing to the Americas. In crossing to the Americas. And I apologize for my sloppy writing. Please ensure that you do a better job than I did today. We have our essential question. Who were the early Mesoamerican civilizations in crossing to the Americas? We simply learned how to find a question by using the 5 W's or 1 H and taking the heading in red and creating a question. We will now begin to do our 3 bullet points. These will be our main ideas. As we read, we will be stopping. When you see a paragraph at the end, you will pause, and you will write in your own words what we read. For instance, around La Venta, we would pause. Then we would continue to read around to art. Then we would pause. We would do the same for by, all the way to the end of symbols. Also by, all the way to fail. So let's give it a try. About 1200 BC, an advanced civilization arose in Mesoamerica, a region that stretches from central Mexico to present-day Nicaragua. For 800 years, a people called the Olmec thrived along the Gulf of Mexico. The Olmec set up a network of trade routes and constructed earthen mounds shaped like pyramids. They built large, busy cities like La Venta. Now, I would want to ask you, as you're on the other side, what did you just read? If you're confused, please go ahead and refer to your essential question. Your essential question was, who were the early Mesoamerican civilizations in crossing to the Americas? Go ahead and find. If you said the Olmecs, you are correct. The Olmecs were the first ones to cross to the Mesoamericans. Now, why would McDougall-Littell inform us about the Olmecs? What was it that they did for us? If you take a look at this line, it reads, the Olmecs set up a network of trade routes. Here, in your own words, you will write, the Olmecs created trade routes. As you can see, I did not copy from the book, and I was able to tell and show my teacher that I understood what I read. You do not have to necessarily add all the information in this passage. You will always refer to your essential question. Now, let's go ahead and go to around 400 BC. Around 400 BC, the Olmecs abandoned La Venta and other cities. Scientists don't know why. By then, the Olmec culture has spread along trade routes and influenced others. Later, people in Mesoamerica adapted Olmec religious practices and carved designs inspired by Olmec art. What did you just read? Yes, we read that the Olmecs abandoned or left their cities. Now, what would influence them to do that? On this line, you will write, the Olmecs abandoned their cities. Because here in the first one, they created them, now they abandoned them. The Olmecs abandoned the cities. You can also add in there, but before they left, they influenced others through art. Congratulations, you're on your way to the third paragraph. Let's continue. By AD 250, about 650 years after the Olmecs vanished, the Mayan had developed a great civilizations. Their cities were in southern Mexico and Guatemala, where they built pyramid mounds topped by temples. From artifacts, archaeologists know that the Maya had an accurate yearly calendar. They were the first people in the Americas to create a number system using zero. Their written language used picture symbols. Let's refer back to our essential question. Who were the early Mesoamerican civilizations in crossing to the Americas? Please take the time now, as we just read, to find who were, once the Olmecs vanished, who came in. If you said the Mayans or the Maya, you are correct. On your third bullet, you could put the Mayans or the Maya. The Maya crossed to the Americas. What did they bring along with them? You are correct. They created a number system using zero. They also contributed to our written language. The Mayans contributed a number system and language. For the main ideas, you can also draw if that helps you out. But when someone asks you what you did, please ensure that you write Mayans contributed the number system and maybe hieroglyphics or picture symbols. In the end, by 900, the Mayans had abandoned many of their cities. Scientists think that revolts, disease, or crop failures may have caused their society to fail. You can also add an additional note and put that the Mayans disappeared, possibly caused by disease and crop failure. Now, the next step is very important. This is the part where you will skip a line. You will write cite evidence. This is typically challenging for some students, but it's not impossible. And I would guide you also through this video. Cite evidence. Citing evidence is taking the text word for word from the text. However, you give McDougall-Littell credit by putting quotation marks and learning how to cite him properly, or what we refer to as the MLA style. In this case, if you still don't understand, citing evidence is typically this: taking your question, who were the early Mesoamerican civilizations in crossing to the Americas, and asking yourself, I'm the teacher, and my students will want to ask me, where in the book did you get that answer from? You must be able as a teacher, again, you're the student, as a teacher, you must be able to have an answer for them. You do that by taking word for word from this section only. Remember, every heading in red means stop. That's a new section. We're only doing this section. So again, for citing evidence, you are the teacher. You asked, who were the early Mesoamerican civilizations in crossing to the Americas? Now let's go ahead and find the line that you would like to use. If you would like to use, for 800 years, a people called the Olmecs thrived through the Gulf of Mexico, that would be a good choice. Why? Because they were the early Mesoamerican civilizations. Olmecs. You can find that line here. Now, if you chose the Olmecs set up a network of trade routes and constructed earthen mound shaped like pyramids, you can also use that information. Many of you have possibly looked down here and you have said, wait a minute, By AD 250, about 650 years after the Olmecs vanished, the Mayan had developed a great civilization. If you found this line, then yes, you are correct. They would both answer, who were the early Mesoamerican civilizations to cross the Americas? Now that we have found our line together, we're going to put quotation marks. And for today's sake, we're going to copy the first one, for 800 years. For 800 years, comma, and I'm taking this line, a people called the Olmecs thrived along the Gulf of Mexico. In quotations. It's very important that you begin with quotations and you end with quotations because these are not your words. They were taken directly from another source. A source is a textbook in this case. What you must also do is put parentheses and write the author's name or the publisher's name. In this case, you can find the publisher's name or the author's name here, McDougall-Littell. You would write his name after the parentheses. McDougall-Littell. You would also cite the page where you found it from, 29. But instead of writing PG, you would just write McDougall-Littell, 29. Close parentheses, period. You're finished. You have cited evidence. Again, citing evidence means taking word for word from the textbook to answer your essential question. Once you have done that, we begin the next step. History Wordle. History Wordle, I have found to be very successful for multiple students as they write summaries. At times, you may forget to write important individuals, figures, places, or things that you read. History Wordle ensures that you do not leave anyone out or anything out. Let's begin by doing the History Wordle. You will write History Wordle on the left-hand side. You must use this entire side for doing the Wordle. Wordle means finding people, places, and things that repeat themselves more than once. For instance, let's take a look at this paragraph. You see Mexico once, twice, 3 times. Mexico would be written in the History Wordle, comma. Now you go ahead and try to see if you can find another one that repeats itself. Yes, Olmecs. Olmecs repeats itself 1, twice, 3, and 4 times. As long as the word repeats itself more than once, it is very important. Please write the Olmecs, comma. The next word that you would find would be routes. Routes. In History Wordle, do not use connector words such as a, to, the, and, or the. Those are connector words which you will later use for summaries. For History Wordle, you must ensure that you only find words that repeat themselves. Americas is another word. Maya. Cities. People. You see the word scientist? Scientist. You would write scientist. Mesoamerica. The Gulf of Mexico. Abandon. These two words mean the same thing. As you begin to find the words, what you do is you take all the words that you find and you begin to create a summary from them. So scientist, Mesoamerica, and others that we verbally said right now, La Venta. That would be a city. Only from this paragraph. Please do not go on to the next one. Once you have found all your words, what you would do with these words is unscramble them to create a summary. You would first begin by doing this. You would write, according to McDougall-Littell, early Mesoamerican civilizations, early Mesoamerican civilizations take any of these words. Were believed to be the Olmecs and Mayas according to scientists. As you can see, as I use the word, I'm underlining and also taking it out. We still have cities, routes, Americas, and Mesoamericans. According to McDougall-Littell, early Mesoamerican civilizations were believed to be the Olmecs and Mayans, according to scientists. Now let's try to create something with Mesoamerica. We know that Mesoamerica is a place that involves Mexico. So let's try it and see if maybe we can create a question. Like, for instance, where did the Olmecs and the Mayas come from? Let's go ahead and think and put those together. All right, that sounds great. Let's try your sentence. The Olmecs and Mayas came from Mesoamerican civilizations from Mexico, from Mexico cities. And please remember that up here you can also put figures. For instance, we said the system, the number system. It has a figure which is 0. And here you can also put their contributions. For instance, the Mayans contributed the number system 0. And again, a figure is a number. It's not really a person. In history, referred to as figures as numbers. So when you see a number, it's very important that you write it down. And I apologize for not having done that earlier. So here you would write, the Mayans contributed the number system. You might also say, can we also add that they had a written language? Absolutely. The answer would be yes. You would write, they also contributed to a written language. This would be your summary. And if you take a look at your summary, it gives you the main idea of what the early Mesoamerican societies were, why, and who were the first Mesoamerican civilizations. You will continue this process of first writing down the essential question. You get the essential question by taking the heading in red and writing the 5 W's or the 1 H. Once you have created your question, you would write 3 to 4 notes based on what you read. You always pause at the end, reflect, and ask your question. Once you have finished with your 3 main notes, and again, the notes do not have to be complete sentences. You can also use images to assist you. Again, these are your notes. But please remember why you drew it. As soon as you have your 3 bullets, you would cite evidence. Remember, citing evidence is you asking that question. You're the teacher, and your students will always want to know where they got that answer from, or where you got that answer from. You must be able to always use the book. Citing evidence means taking word for word from the book and copying it down. There is nothing wrong with citing evidence and copy from a book, as long as you put quotation marks, you put parentheses, and you give the author or publisher's credit. For instance, parentheses, McDougall-Littell 29, close parentheses, period. For history, Wordle means taking words from the passage that repeat themselves. I may have skipped a couple, but if you found more than me, congratulations. You are a better history Wordle detective than I was. In this case, I just sampled Mexico because we noticed that it was listed more than 2 times. Again, even if Mexico was only listed 1, it is a proper noun. You must always find the names of people and places, even if they are mentioned 1, to place them in your history Wordle. You must always write the figures. For instance, here that we see the word 0. We know 0 is a number, also referred to as a figure in history. Then we would begin, always, according to McDougall-Littell, early Mesoamerican civilizations were believed to be the Olmecs and Mayas, according to scientists. Olmecs and Mayas came from the Mesoamerican civilizations and Mexico cities, from Mexico cities. The Mayans created the number system, 0, and a written language. Congratulations, you have finished the tutorial. Now, if you would like, you can try the next one by yourself. Again, take that question, the Hohokam and the Anasazi, and create a question with it. Now, good luck, and I'll see you next time on our next tutorial. And please like us on Facebook.